and this is BOGO, the podcast with 2 rotating segments for the price of 1.
You're right. That's right. Right. Every week, you'll get an episode of Chapter Chit Chat, our cozy, unfiltered book talk, where we read excerpts and spiral into deep discussion.
You'll also get an episode of Almost Experts, which we're doing today. That is the part of the show where we go over your story, spicy dilemmas, existential crises, horror movies,
and respond with our most sincere, unwarranted, absolutely unqualified opinions. Think of us as your internet sisters, part Gen Z,
part millennial,
all opinions,
and 0 credentials.
Guys, it's 12 a.m.
Whether you're here for the... Wait. We sound like we're still... Wait,
I kind of like it though. We can just cut out the stupid parts, no?
The whole thing.
Wait, what was wrong? It was good. Okay. You're in the right place.
Wait, I didn't say my lines yet.
Okay.
So today, we're going to do an episode on Jinn stories. Why can't I read? Nour, do you want to explain what jinns are?
Yeah. So in Islam, which is, by the way, the faith that we practice, Jinn are unseen beings created by God from smokeless fire that live among humans, but cannot be seen to the human eye. They have their own families and lives, as well as free will, just like humans, and can choose to be good or evil.
Think beings in a different dimension, but still among us. And so while Jinn stories can often be told for entertainment purposes nowadays, especially, they are still part of the Islamic belief. So we approach the topic with religious sensitivity. Listener discretion is advised.
So this first story is a bizarre but intriguing labyrinth that'll knock your socks off. And it goes like this. My dear brothers and sisters, after a lot of research, I found this story that happened to a young man, and it's a lesson to show us that the path of Shaitan, the devil, leads to nothing but destruction. The story is counted by the cousin of the young man. So let's start. My name is Yasir. I was 28 when the events I will count happened. I came from a family of farmers. We are villagers from Egypt. I was married to a good woman. We had a son, and we lived with my mother in the house of my father. I was a simple farmer, so we were poor, and I started to get tired of that life. I was an adventurer who loved to live new experiences, and I wanted to be wealthy and live like other men my age, but I did not study and couldn't afford a good job. One day, some cousins of my mother came to our village to visit us. They were researchers from the city. They worked in archaeology, and they passed by our home for a day, and I was so fascinated by them and their job. They were young men in their 30s like me, but had a better life than me. They studied and had passionate jobs. So before I knew it, I spoke and I said, I want to work with you. They all looked at me and said, but what would you work in? I replied, I can help in digging. I can do the hard work of digging or anything you need me in, please. Out of respect for my mother, they accepted, and I left with them for another city in Egypt, and we stopped and started to dig in a certain place to search for ancient remainings and treasures, and while I was digging, I noticed a man who was telling them where to dig. He traveled with us, but I noticed that sometimes he went to far places by himself and talked alone, like talking to himself. And I started to chat with him. I realized that he was a magician and dealt with jinns that tell him where to dig for treasures.
Why is that worse to me? I thought it was a jinn taking human form. It's almost worse. It's worse.
He needed to discuss with the council. I knew about magicians. There were a lot in my village, but it never came to my head that one day I would be interested in the jinns until this man said, what exactly would you want from them if you worked with them? why is he not even questioning, like, is this right? Is this wrong? Is this okay? He's just like, I want to join. Take me. I replied, I want to become rich. And he smiled. He said to me, let me teach you something, my son. In the Jinn world, the females are much more powerful than males and have more influence and evilness. The female Jinn queens are the ones the magicians work with mostly, especially the ones specialized in dark magic. So if you want to become... I'm already getting chills. So if you want to become rich, I suggest you to search for the queen.
Say her name.
Okay. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم, dude. She is specialized in searching for hidden treasures, but she is very evil and not easy to deal with, so be careful. He continued, I tried to call on her many times, but it never worked out. You have more chance. This is so detailed. Wow. You have more chances than me since you are younger and good looking, because if she likes your look, she will show up and take you as a husband. But if she doesn't like how you look or see that you are weak, she will send one of her guards or servants to torture you until you lose your mind or die. This is why I warn you. He seemed to me like a weak magician. The jinns were playing him. They led him to wrong places everywhere we went, so I lost interest in him. I wanted to go to a powerful magician, and I became obsessed with the queen, and my decision was made. I had to search for a way to summon her. She was my only way for a better life. I feel like there are some steps you can take towards improving your life before. We traveled again to a new city, and this time we stayed in a small hotel, and in front of it... Are you okay?
Mm-hmm.
In front of it was a big house. So I got curious, and one of the workers told me that it belonged to an old woman who's a dangerous magician, and this was exactly what I looked for since months. Hold on, I need a second.
It's Arabic to English, that's why it's like that.
I need a second to like...
Do you want me to continue?
Sure.
No, you can.
Okay,
Yeah.
Okay. We traveled again to a new city, and this time we stayed in a small hotel, and in front of it was a big house. So I got curious, and one of the workers told me that it belonged to an old woman who's a dangerous magician, and this was exactly what I looked for since months. I immediately went there, and a young woman who the guards in the place said to me, you're looking for a way to call on the queen, right? Come and enter. Yasser, my mistress is waiting for you. I was terrified. How did she know my name? And what was I thinking? Then it hit me. This is the house of a magician. The old lady was waiting inside. She looked at me and said, I will give you the real ritual to call on the queen, but in exchange, I want a huge amount of money. I replied, but I don't have money. She was silent for some time and said, all right, I will need you to do something. When you call on the queen, I need you to go to a certain grave and bring me something from there. The old woman added, listen, I will give you the original and true way to call on the queen. You can only find it in the original magic books, and they are rare and not found anywhere, so I require that you do your part in return. I need the queen in something she can find for me in a certain grave. I cannot call her because I'm a woman and she only deals with young men like you. So do not think of playing me. And she grabbed my hand and wrote something in it, and I suddenly fell unconscious. I woke up in the garden of that old woman an hour later, and she was standing looking at me. She said, now you can see what I can do to you if you think of playing me. Oh, Lord. Here is the ritual. And she threw a page on my face, and she added, I hope you know what you must sacrifice if you enter this world. I replied, what do you mean? She said, you must stop praying and commit shirk. Shirk is when you
ascribe partners to God. So Islam is a monotheistic faith. So in doing so, you're pretty much turning your back on that.
You can no longer be a Muslim. It's the condition of making a contract with the jinns. For a moment, I was sad. Then a voice spoke in my head and said, "What did you gain from praying and worshipping Allah all your life anyway?" And I replied to that old woman, "Deal." And I left. SubhanAllah, dude. I was sitting in my hotel room holding the paper of the ritual, and there was a picture of the queen and the ingredients required for the ritual. So I went to the store and bought all what was needed for the first time in my life that day. And when I heard the adhan, the call to prayer, I got up for salah, and I remembered what the old lady said, and a tear fell from my eyes. And I said, "Forgive me for this, Ya Allah." And I stopped praying. The second worst thing I did was fasting for the sake of the queen and not for the sake of Allah. Her ritual required fasting for days and eating certain foods. You see how they humiliate us? And sadly, I did it. And I won't mention the disgusting things I did for this ritual. I finished everything, and the appointed day came, and I kept calling on the queen alone in my hotel room for hours. I knew the steps of what will happen, and suddenly the air thickened in the room, and I heard weird noises until the queen appeared to me out of nowhere, and I froze from shock. The queen stood right in front of me, and she looked exactly like the picture. She had long black hair and brown skin, and she wore a white dress and a gold crown on her head. And for an instant, I couldn't breathe from both fear and shock. I knew what to do next. Since she came herself, it means that she approved of me. So I gave her the piece of bread I held in my hands. She took it from me, which means that I was accepted and the contract was made, and she disappeared in a second. I couldn't sleep at night, and a verse from the Quran came to my head like a warning, where Allah says, "Will you take Shaitan and his children as allies instead of me while they are your enemies?" I knew what I was doing was destroying me, but money blinded me, and the next day the queen came back again, and I told her what I wanted. Since she was an expert in finding treasures, she led me to a graveyard where I found my first treasure. Once I came back to my family, both my wife and my mother complained because I used to go out every night, going with the queen to search treasures and come back only in the mornings. And I asked the queen for a way to make them not question anything, and she taught me how to practice magic on food. And once my mother and my wife ate that food, they started to be silent and not question anything. Yes, I did magic on my own family. I became wealthy and bought a new house, and people started to question where I became so rich from, since they all knew I was a simple farmer who was poor, and my mother and my wife didn't question anything since they were under the influence of magic, and seeing the jinns had become normal to me. I saw many servants and guards of the queen when she sent them to me. After the months passed, I asked the queen a question. "Why didn't you marry me yet?" And she smiled and replied, "Because you are married already. We jinn queens do not share the man we take as husband, and certainly not with a human woman." And she added, "If you want me to take you as a husband, you must divorce your human wife." And the choice was made already in my head. I did not hesitate, and I went home and divorced my wife. My wife had only one condition for divorce, which is to let her keep our son. And I agreed, and my mother left and refused to talk to me again. She did not approve of the divorce and my new lifestyle, and I was left alone. The queen came to me that day and said, "Prostrate to me, and you'll become my husband." I got confused, and she repeated, "Make sujood to me."
Sujood, by the way, is prostration.
And I sadly did it. Indeed, the jinns don't do anything for you except that they take more in return. I had degraded myself, while Allah gave me honor, and that was my first punishment. The queen married me and sent some of her guards to be with me all the time, and I hunted for more treasures, and my wealth grew, and more people started to question until one day I was visited by police. Someone had told them I was a magician because they saw me many times at night going to the graveyard. So in Egypt is like magic recognized legally.
Like as a system?
Yeah. Because if someone reported him doing magic to the police and the police came, that must mean that it's illegal.
Yeah. Do they have Sharia law?
I don't know.
Here, let me look it up really fast. So in Egypt, Sharia law, which is derived from the Islamic religious law, plays a significant role in their legal system, particularly in matters related to personal status, family law, religious issues for Muslims. And so in that sense, yes, practicing magic is illegal. You can see that echoed across multiple Muslim majority countries that combine certain facets of Sharia law into their mainstay political and legal systems. But it is an interesting take.
So, yeah, one day I was visited by police. Someone had told them I was a magician because they saw me many times going at night to the graveyard. But since they had no proof, and nothing happened. Until one day I remembered the old woman, and I told the queen about what she asked me to do for her. And the queen replied, "Forget about her. She can't do anything to you." A few days later, the old witch came to my house with a very angry face. She said, "Didn't I tell you not to play with me? It's been months and you did not fulfill your part of the pact." And the queen appeared and she hurt her. The old woman looked at me before leaving and said, "You will pay for this." The queen told me about a place where there was a hidden treasure, and I brought 5 of my cousins to dig. They all knew about my lifestyle and the magic, and they agreed to help. But the queen said, "This time, in order for me to help, a human sacrifice is needed." I got scared and said, "You cannot be serious. I never needed a human sacrifice before." And she said, "Either you spill blood or the consequences will not be good for you." I knew that it was a plot from her. After all, she is a shaitana, a devil, so what did I expect? I knew she would ask for more and turn on me one day. I knew I would pay the price high, and I had no choice but to do as she said, or I'll be the one who will end up hurt. The queen was so mischievous, like all her kind, and I had no choice but to do as she said. So I found a crazy homeless man, and I chose him because I knew no one would search for him. And when my cousins saw him and learned about what we would do to him, they were shocked. 3 of them finally agreed because they wanted this money as much as me, and 2 refused, and they all fought. And with the influence of the devil in that place, I don't know how, but one of them plunged a knife in the back of one of my cousins, and indeed blood was spilled. We all stood in shock, looking at the lifeless body of our cousin, and I asked all 4 of them to take the body and bury.
It's really uncomfortably with me, or it leaves me with a lot of discomfort knowing the amount of detail that was in here and the way you had to omit names the entire time you were reading, only because I have zero it is frightening to think that not you, but like a person can have this much access to information about the jinn written out in this way.
And all of the rituals, like the only part he omitted was, I had to do disgusting things, but like the process of talking to the witch telling him, "Oh, there's this way from this book," and then doing all the things that he had to do, seeing a picture, seeing how the queen matched up with the picture. Like, that's not just creative expression.
Yeah.
Can we even post this?
What I don't understand is, why would anyone think to cheat the system, to cheat how reality works, and to go into or like seek out the unseen to aid in a realistic life endeavor that everyone, like a get rich quick scheme is never going to work. And then to degrade yourself, to abandon your values and your belief, to turn your back on the religion you were raised on, which you still believed in up until that point, and to not trust that provision is coming, that there's a better plan in place, like all these things that we're taught as Muslims, to leave all that behind, turn your back and consciously choose to degrade yourself, to do things that humiliate yourself, that weaken you, that diminish you as a man, as a human. You do all these things in servitude of beings that are not all powerful, that are literally creatures that have just free will like you and I, have feelings and play tricks. You do all this for what?
He didn't even question it. Like, that is what just shocks me. He didn't even question or have like a period of debate, internal rebuttal, nothing. He was just like, oh, I need money, let me do this.
And the desperation doesn't make sense, or like willingness to do so in the absence of desperation does not make sense.
You have a family. You are a farmer. There are so many other routes. Any other route would take you, would change the course of your life. Why choose this so quickly?
That's what I mean. That's what I mean by like get rich quick schemes. It's bizarre.
like what's bizarre to me is like when you encounter such strange behavior, unless like I don't know, maybe he's just surrounded by like black magic to where it's like,
I mean, he does mention that like there are other magicians in his village, so I almost feel like it might be a norm, even though. And for those of you who are unfamiliar, in Islam, for Muslims, black magic is any type of magic dealing with the supernatural, that sort of thing. All of those things are not allowed, are considered wrong.
Any type of communication.
Right. So when we're discussing it in this way, that's the belief we're coming to the table with. And so with full understanding of that, it just doesn't make sense for somebody who also was a born Muslim to just be able to make that decision so quickly without any consideration to repercussions, without any seemingly simple regrets even. There was no hesitation. There was no caution. There was no... there's none of that.
Do you feel bad for him?
For him?
Mm-hmm.
There's not enough for me to know about him as a person, you know. Mm-hmm. Like in one way, like he could have truly been tricked and didn't know any better or whatever, what have you. But this just spelled out like, oh, lazy man wants to get rich quick, and this is what ends up happening, you know.
Also, the whole concept of him being threatened and being told that if you don't do this, you will be punished. Like he is conscious of how wrong it is, and he is conscious of the consequences. I mean, I don't think I can feel an ounce of sympathy. I think he made his bed and he slept in it.
Okay, well, the next story is a true story written by a man based on his own experiences from Mississauga, Canada. It is a blog. And so this is a story from Omar about a visit to Kenya from Canada. And it goes as follows. I visited Kenya in September 2017 to see my cousin. My cousin and I had been very close. We were closer than brothers and shared a lot of the same passions. The main passion we shared together was a strong allurement to adventure. We were never wary of throwing caution to the winds in order to have that moment of a lifetime experience, and boy, did we have some. We had planned an epic tour. My cousin was a doctor in one of the more prestigious medical schools in Nairobi and had been invited to the famous Masai Mara Game Reserve to do a presentation on two new ranger recruits. And the Masai are like one of the tribes in Kenya, and they're also known to be the most impoverished of the tribes in Kenya. They hold on to a lot of traditional ways. They have their, like, they grow, there's one, like a wonder miracle plant that they grow. I can't think of what it's called, but yeah, like they're still very much rooted in their tradition. So just so for context, he was requested to provide training on dealings with various injuries and medical conditions in the bush, from wildfires, bee stings, snake bites, and even gore injuries from animals like Cape buffalo, nicknamed Black Death by the locals. My cousin made a deal with a head game warden in the country. If he were to give this presentation, he'd want himself and me to have free entry to the game park and to accompany the head game warden on a wildlife tour. He told me what he had planned, and I was over the moon. I had never been so excited in my life, and naturally, I was pumping my fists at such a prospect. Before getting into how the story relates to jinns, I'd like to set the scene and atmosphere here. We had gone to the Mara to see the Great Migration. The Great Migration is the annual movement of millions of animals from the Serengeti in Tanzania to Kenya, crossing over the crocodile-infested Mara River. It is one of the most amazing spectacles in the world, and I was lucky enough to witness it. We stayed the first night in the Mara Serena, one of the best game lodges in the Masai Mara, and I remember that night distinctly. We had just entered the room, and I had opened the back window which faced the open plains of the game reserve. We started praying Maghrib, and suddenly, while praying, we heard only what every wildlife lover dreams of hearing. It was a male lion roaring in the distance. Both our hearts stopped that night as we were mesmerized. We didn't blink. We didn't say anything. We just listened and absorbed it. The next day, we went to actually see the migration and saw every animal under the sun, from elephants to lions to hyenas to hippos. To my delight, we were told later that day that we would be spending our last night at a campsite, and that's when things started to get really interesting. My cousin and I had been back from spending time with a documentary director from Zimbabwe, driving to the outer edges of the Mara to see the extent of the migration. However, in the middle of the night, we were dropped off a quarter mile from the hotel by a mutual friend in the middle of the bush and asked to walk to the Serena for dinner. We thought, okay, no problem. We know the way. What's the worst that could happen? We started our walk and quickly realized how stupid of an idea that was. We couldn't see anything, and we were walking on a road with bushes about 10 feet tall on each side.
Why would the friend just drop them off in the middle of nowhere, basically? Why not just be a good friend?
We finally arrived at the Serena about 15 minutes later and had dinner. We were eating, and while we were eating, we were told that an elephant stood between us and our campsite, so we might have to sleep in an open car in the middle of the Mara. We raced back in hopes we could somehow scare the elephant away so we could sleep inside. At that point, I don't know what seemed worse, trying to scare an elephant away or sleeping in an open area, knowing that we could very well see anything else. We had heard a lion the previous night. Luckily, by the time we got the campsite, the elephant had moved on, so we were able to sneak into our tent. As soon as we got back into our tent, the elephant came back. Okay. At night, we could see the shadows of At night, we could see the shadows of animals on our tent. We heard elephants breaking branches, and we also saw the outlines of hippos. Suddenly, just before dozing off, I had heard the same lines again, except they sounded closer. When I woke up the next morning, I saw my cousin visibly disturbed. I asked him what happened, and he said he couldn't get a whiff of sleep. I failed to understand, but he told me what he had told me made no sense.
Should I read?
Yeah, I just went ahead.
He said that something had been in the tent with us that night. He insisted it was a jinn. He had frightening dreams and felt a presence. This seemed so odd to me. We had gone through an entire ordeal with anything but jinns. So why is he having this thought? My cousin had been a military doctor and had seen his fair share of frightening scenes.
This is why I couldn't keep reading. Yeah, I have goosebumps on my arms. Okay, sorry, keep going.
It seemed out of the blue. When I had some time later that morning, I thought about it a bit more and it made sense from an Islamic perspective. We are taught by Islamic tradition that jinns like to live in desolate places far away as possible from human disturbance. And the Mara is as wild as it gets. I also know that they live in trees and forests.
Yeah, and abandoned places. They say in certain parts of Malaysia, at least when I was living in Malaysia, I'm not Malaysian, but I lived in Malaysia for a little while as a kid or tween. And one of the aunts that I'd met there told me that in some villages that are, kind of near to jungle space, they would say in order to enter that part of the land, you have to knock and ask permission from the jinns for that area. Yeah.
Just go around.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I don't know why I'm thinking of this, but those turbo packs from that one from Subway Surfers? Just use one of
have you played that game?
Yeah.
I literally watch, the only context I have for that game is watching TikToks for Reddit stories, and then me just zooming through and then watching it in the background as I'm listening to the story on 2x speed. But
I don't know why. That's what I thought of.
Okay.
I actually feel like if we played right now Subway Surfers, it would help get through this story.
Okay, I can keep reading. I couldn't completely discount the fact that something else other than the local wildlife was hanging around us. It was entirely possible. Later, we discussed this with the locals, and they told us how much the belief in jinn is instilled in the culture. Black magic and white magic is also practiced frequently. By the way, we don't differentiate between the two. Magic is magic. We don't do it. But it continues. I was told witch doctors were very powerful and had control of entire villages. They are called the Maganga in Swahili. Because of this, we decided to take our Kenya trip in a different fashion. We heard that the port city of Mombasa, almost 500 kilometers from Nairobi, was famous for its sihr, black magic, and jinn stories, so we took a detour. When we arrived, the first thing I saw before entering the city was a huge sign saying Maganga. It was an advertisement for a witch doctor, and it even had a phone number. Wait, you're telling me these are Muslims that heard this city is known for black magic, and then they decided, let's book our trip and go? Let's detour and go there instead? You're asking, okay, when you open the door, you ask for trouble. But it continues. The city was indeed living up to its reputation. It didn't stop there. In fact, when we got to the hotel, we were asked not to stand near the water at night. Why? It's because of the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, where he said the jinn are of three kinds, one of them being those who dwell in the ocean.
Really?
Bermuda Triangle, anyone? So that's such a conspiracy theory. But anyways, later that day, my cousin had gone out to visit family, leaving me in the hotel, which was right by the Indian Ocean, alone. I decided to go down to the beach and take a quick peek at how it is at night. When I was heading to the beach and about to take the steps down onto the sand, I felt a hand grab my shoulder. It was the hotel security guard. He advised me not to go further. I asked why, and he kept saying it just wasn't safe at night. I spoke with a few other locals and learned that there was a frequent belief of shapeshifters appearing at night on the beach. Figures that seemed human, but weren't. and would appear one moment and disappear the next. The next day, we took a tour of the old town of Mombasa, where the famous Fort Jesus resides. We hired a local Muslim guide who took us on a walking tour of the town, showing us some of its amazing relics and historical buildings. It was a surreal experience being in a port city with a majority Muslim identity. At the end of the tour, I asked the real question I had been suppressing for hours. What about the famous mangangas of Mombasa?
Why are you asking?
I saw the smile on the face of the guide disappear, as if I had said something blasphemous. What about them, he asked. I said, I want to know more about them. Where do they live? He became very serious and turned towards me and said, listen, brother, here we have two kinds of magic. The fake one where you play card tricks on the street, and then there's the real stuff, the black magic, which is done by spirits. There's an island off the coast where stories of magangas making people disappear are told very frequently. I can show you the card trick guys, but I will not take you to the real magicians. It's not safe. They are here, and they're also inhabiting these buildings you walk by. You can sometimes recognize where they stay by seeing the famous eye and the triangle sign on the walls. I was amazed. Dollar anyone? I was amazed at the answer. I could not really believe I was there in the vicinity, and in fact, I did see that triangle sign many times. Even though I didn't witness anything myself, I learned a lot about Jinn during this trip. I learned the power these stories have over people. I saw the strong impressions that the concept of the supernatural had made on the local culture in Mombasa. Not one person did I meet from Mombasa except that they had some kind of story. Overall, I grew in a lot of appreciation of the concept, and it only fueled my desire to learn more about it. In fact, I've returned.
That's how they get you.
Since.
I'm sorry.
And intend on visiting many more times in the future. I agree with you. Like, quell that curiosity. Yeah.
And the intrigue and like the desire to know more.
Necessary.
Know that that's literally shaitan.
Mm-hmm.
Shut it down. Zip, zip, zip. Shut it down.
Exactly.
I'm sorry. This is not funny.
No, exactly. That's it. Men said he's going back.
Why do you want to see this stuff so badly?
Like, some people think that it's funny or they're living for a thrill. And this man says, like, he's an adventure seeker or whatever. But this is a different kind of... This is concerning. This is not fun. No. This is actually...
And then what you invite, you don't get to choose how they leave.
Mm-hmm.
You know, these... When you make yourself susceptible to these... to jinns and the devil, they can follow you home. They can endanger you and your family, your well-being, your health. You don't get to pick and choose what happens to you. Stay far away. Far away.
Well, we have one last story. In our belief, we are taught to take precaution. So whether that is your daily prayers, invocations in the morning and night, seeking protection and being cautious in certain circumstances, we do that. We don't walk into situations willingly, and we don't call upon anything that can bring us harm. However, some people, out of a sense of carelessness, curiosity, stupidity, or absolute ignorance,
boredom,
can do so.
If you're that bored, get a job.
And then for some, it's just happenstance. And this is a story of that kind. So I'm going to read it. Nothing I say is my own experience. And I realize we should probably give that, what is the word? It starts with a D.
Disclaimer?
Yes, we should give that disclaimer because it's a lot of eyes.
Oh.
It's a little scary to hear it come from your mouth and me think to myself and remind myself it's not her, it's not her. Okay, so the story goes as follows. So this is what happened to me last winter. I normally stay at my grandpa's house most of the time, and it's just me, 3 aunts, and my grandparents. My cousins come there occasionally too. They live in a society which is pretty green, like loads of trees, the ecosystem is green stuff. There's a really cool park just 10 minutes walking distance away from the place, and I usually go there at night because, as I said, the ecosystem is pretty good. So you can see rare birds, baby birds, just killdeers, cuckoos, stuff like that at night. So long story short, one day, me and a friend who's my neighbor here decided to walk and explore the society at night and take the long way to the park, because we deliberately wanted something paranormal to happen.
I'm going to beat y'all up. I'm literally going to throw hands.
We were walking on the sidewalk along the main roads at night, and it was about 1 a.m., and there was a bit of fog as well. Early winter. He said the same thing to me that is posted in this meme to not walk underneath trees, but me, being dumb, thought it was just one of those made-up myths aunties tell you to stop playing. So I kept walking under trees throughout the way. I had watched this video the same week by a channel called The Merciful Servant, where they taught you about all the types of jinn that exist. And those of you who don't know this, they have specific names and types. Wait, I'm sorry. Oh my God, you literally just mentioned jinns and trees earlier. Okay, so it continues.
There's, I was also, or I heard growing up that, like, not to wear super strong fragrance when you're passing by trees at night, because you don't want to attract things that are not good for you. Assuming that you are a person who is sane and doesn't go looking for.
No.
Like
I'm the chaotic kid that will literally scream "A'udhu billah" and spit at things like everywhere, in every single direction, just to be sure.
Find employment soon. Pick up a hobby. Like, read a book. Not a jinn book. Not a sad book.
Honestly, that's also just a black hole in and of itself. Okay,
yes.
So the story continues. Jinns have specific names and types. We reached this pretty old tree that was dead and dry in the middle of nowhere, and I don't know why I did this, but I joked with my friend, saying a particular jinn, I said his name, lives here. And then I went forward and said it out loud, that name here. You live here, right? I want your place now, and kid you not, the same moment I said that, the most horrific growl came from above the tree right over our heads. That growl is still etched in my ears. Okay, we're going to go back.
Muslims can't write, guys.
Okay, we're going to continue. So they have specific names and types, and the narrator continues and says, we reached this pretty old tree that was dead and dry in the middle of nowhere. IDK, I don't know why I did this, but I joked with my friends, saying a particular jinn. I don't feel good about this. Okay, hold on. So, I feel like I shouldn't be speaking during this.
له ما في السماوات وما في الأرض من ذا الذي يشفع عنده إلا بإذنه يعلم ما بين أيديهم وما خلفهم ولا يحيطون بشيء من علمه إلا بما شاء وسع كرسيه السماوات والأرض ولا يؤوده حفظهما وهو العلي العظيم أعوذ.
I feel so much better after that. Like, that genuinely gave me some consolation.
Okay, so the story continues. We reached this pretty old tree that was dead and dry in the middle of nowhere. And I don't know why I did this, but I joked with my friend, saying a particular jinn, I called his name, and said that jinn lives here. And then I went forward and said aloud that, hey, insert name here, you live here, right? I want your place now, And I kid you not, the exact same moment I said that, the most horrific growl came from above the tree, like right above our heads. That growl is still etched in my ears. And it was just like an angry grizzly bear, to give you an example. And it was so loud that my ears got blocked and started to ring. We ran instantly, reciting Ayatul Kursi, and we just kept running and running and running as fast as we could until we reached my friend's place. It felt like a movie, and it was hard to fathom what just happened, and that's not all. We ended up going to his place since it was closer than my grandpa's by a few houses, and not only that, but his mom was home, but nobody was awake. As soon as we entered the house, we entered it through a back door, as we had sort of snuck back in after sneaking out, because we weren't allowed to go out this late at all. The house had two portions. His mom was asleep on the upper floor, and we entered and only a few small yellowish lights were on in the dining room, and everything else was pitch black. The moment we entered and slowly were walking to his room that was on the right side, we heard heavy breathing coming out of the room that was on the left. About 10 feet away, as if someone huge was breathing really loud. So we sprinted to his room and locked it.
Not the fat shaming.
Then what happened next was that the entire night he felt like someone was calling my name from the outside. And I heard someone calling his name from the outside. But there was no one in the house except his mom, who was sleeping. And if it were her, she would have just opened the door herself. We literally heard someone moving things outside the room and walking when there was nobody there and not his mom as she was asleep. In the morning, I went over to my own place, and my friend told me that when he slept, he woke up feeling like there was someone sitting on his chest and he couldn't breathe. He said only until he managed to painfully recite Ayatul Kursi and some other surahs, that thing or feeling went away. Thankfully, it did not happen to me, probably because I recite many surahs normally before going to sleep every night, such as the last verses of Al-Baqarah, Surah Al-Mulk, etc. And he told me, even though he's older, he doesn't do that. He also hardly prays. So never walk under trees and don't challenge jinns because they are real. And this is not my only experience. That society or whatever is probably built on old pagan graveyards, which my uncle told me. And I hope he is joking, to be honest. Okay. Sorry.
So you're Muslim. You don't really pray. You don't protect yourself. You don't recite your adhkar. And then you go instigating jinns.
No, that was the friend. The one who instigated is the one who does do adhkar and like reads every night. The other one was just there for the ride. So the feeling of something on your chest, a lot of people experience it. Some people say that it's sleep paralysis. And then some, when it comes with an ominous feeling, shadows in your peripheries, whatever, they might identify it as like a jinn press, where, you know, it's believed that like the jinn is holding you down in your sleep and your brain is awake, but your body cannot catch up. There is science behind the phenomenon of sleep paralysis, but how you experience it can be really differentiating. But I do want to speak on the bit about like a neighborhood being built on pagan land. I have an old friend whose family home was built on old native land, indigenous land, where the native tribes there were slaughtered by the white man. And we used to like hike up the hills and go see the sunset and whatnot, but like we'd always hear weird noises when we were on the hills. And I never put two and two together. This was when I was in high school. I never put two and two together. And, you know, as we got older, I would still visit every so often. But literally, there was a time where she would experience like insane nightmares and wake up every morning with sleep paralysis. She had sleep apnea and she had no other pre-existing conditions, and all this coincided with each other. And she used to have these vivid dreams that she'd tell me about, and they weren't Muslim, but just everything just seemed to check out. And I was just like, dude, you need to play Surah Al-Baqarah. Like I sent her a link, play this in your house. But I remember one time our parents weren't home. They were out of town. I came over to hang out and, you know, just we were in university at that point. We were doing homework together, and her house still had a home phone line, and there were two like home phones, if you know, catch my drift, same line, one upstairs, one downstairs. And I remember the phone would go off, and she picked up the downstairs one and had me run upstairs to pick up the other side. And we both heard breathing on the line, but no one was there. And when you checked the caller ID, there was no call. And then for days thereafter, she heard breathing in the walls. And this was something she used to hear before when we were teens. It stopped for some time, but it started back up. And she would hear breathing in the walls, and then she would tell her mom, and her mom would be like, I don't know what you're talking about. And her sister was no longer living at the house, so it was just her room on one side of the house, her parents' room on the other side, on the upstairs floor, and then downstairs was all living space. That same day that I was there, like the bathroom, for example, I went in to go use the bathroom upstairs, and there was toilet paper just scattered all across as if a cat was in there playing with it. They had no pets. It was frightening, honestly. But the worst part about it was a little bit later, after I had left, maybe a week later, she sends me a video, and her entire desk is shaking, but nothing else in the house is. I was like, earthquake, but nothing. No one else is experiencing this. I live like, 20 minutes away from you? That's not happening. It was really, really strange. And I just remember she made a habit of playing Surat al-Baqarah in her house every morning after that.
Did it help?
Yeah, they don't live there anymore, but at least from what I remember, it did help for some time. But these types of experiences, like the supernatural, in my opinion, is something that you don't really mess with. It's things that it's the unseen. It's things we don't have answers on. We don't know all the details of. It's not meant for us to have to seek out. It's not meant for us to have to learn about. It's not something that you need to delve into. And
whatever it is that you think you'll find, adventure, or it's literally not worth it. It is not worth it.
You know, in Asian culture, they usually tell ghost stories where like a woman dressed, a very pale woman in long white clothing with really long black hair will sit atop tree branches with her hair coming down to haunt people.
Oh no.
And wallahi, I swear that is from Jinn stories. I feel like, but
in Turkish culture,
mm-hmm.
I had a Turkish friend who, it was during some sort of holiday, like New Year's or something, like the Turkish New Year's, when you're making your New Year's resolutions,
like Nour, it's like spring New Year's or like actual New Year's?
No, like spring New Year's.
Okay, so like Nouruz. Okay.
Yeah. Or there was like a Turkish New Year's.
Okay.
I remember it was around that time. Okay. She was like, we put our wishes, we write them down on paper, and then we put them in the trees.
Do they tie them on?
I don't know if they tie them. I don't know, but she was saying that's what she did.
Undo that knot. I don't feel good about that. Okay. Well, and then what happens? And
then that wish comes true. How does it come true?
In the everyday.
Yes.
Is that like shirk?
Yeah, of course.
It's shirk.
It is, right? Like
Yeah.
asking Allah and running out.
No.
It's like literally
like it's like it's
a pagan
ritual.
It's like a pagan folky thing.
It's not Islamic at all.
No.
Yeah.
That's why I asked if it was Nouruz, because Nouruz in and of itself, like its roots are also pre-Islamic.
I don't know what it's called.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. The reason I asked if it was a knot, though, like, do they tie it in a knot, is because knots are related to sihr. So I was just like,
I didn't ask for details. I didn't want details, to be honest.
No, yeah.
But like the concept of putting in a tree where jinns are known to reside. Well, just in general, like asking anyone for anything or like the universe or whatever. It's shirk. It's believing in something that's not God. But the tree thing specifically is like makes my mind think it's a jinn interaction.
You know, there's this like popular YouTube video, I think. I can't remember, but it's about this like young man or like teenage boy, something in that young adult age group, wherein he goes to school and he's seeking to study Islam, and he has a peer who shows up and like literally was like, you know, raised in an impoverished setting, has zero educational background or anything like that, and then one day suddenly speaks many languages and is like, you know, just doing everything with flying colors. And then like it's found that he was actually possessed. And I don't know, I just, when I think about things like that, I get very wary and worried that like I just, you know, protect us all. It leaves me really, really uncomfortable. I don't think these types of things are meant to make us afraid per se. They're meant to remind us. But yeah, they do give me chills.
I think I'm done.
Yeah. Thank you for tuning in.
My dear Athkar.
Yeah, this was our segment on Jinn stories. If you enjoyed it and you'd like to hear more scary stories, let us know. We can definitely make it happen in a few dozen weeks or something. But yeah, just take your precautions.
Don't go out venturing into unknown, unsafe territory. My Muslim
Call out
buddies.
unnecessary names. And just stay safe out there, yeah?
Bye-bye. Sorry. Okay. I'm so uncomfortable. I know I made you uncomfortable. Are you guys uncomfortable? Let's play Surah Al-Baqarah again. I mean, Ayat al-Kursi.
I don't know why listening to it does nothing for me.
Really? You don't?
I have to read it for myself.
I don't know. Like, when we read it, it helped, but like I think just hearing like the soothing voice, and I love Mashari.
Oh yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
Mashari is like my childhood. He's my dude. Yeah.
Not my childhood, aging me, ya Allah.
Who's your childhood?
Shouldn't days. Classic. And then also like Abu Bakr Shatri was my favorite when I was like in 3rd grade after my mom came back from Hajj. She had a whole cassette set.
I don't think I've heard him.
He reads like Kurdi style.
Yeah.
Alif Lam.
I don't know. It's a bit nasally for me. I mean, he still sounds
my
good.
childhood. My mom just bought the set. You know, she didn't know who she was buying. She just bought it.
Did you feel a feeling when I played this one?
Nostalgia.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Strong nostalgia.
Yes.
We're going to cut it from earlier anyways.
مع السلامة يا أصدقاء. Say مع السلامة يا أصدقاء.
مع السلامة يا أصدقاء.
Why was your قاء stronger than mine? مع السلامة يا أصدقاء. قلقلة.
قلقلة.
your line?
You know
Babe.
the penguin from Toy Story?
Boss babe. Boss babe. That's what we should. Okay.
I'm like starting to develop tears in my eyes.
Whew, suck them tears back up.
As you can see, we have 0 credential. Whether you're here for like stupidity or you just want to feel better about yourself,
Let's get into it.
you're in the right place. You're in the right place.
You're in the
Now we
right
can
place.
get into it.
Let's get into it. Dude, actually,